Okay, hi everyone, and welcome along to the next wave. We've decided to call it the next wave instead of the last wave because there'll always be a next wave. And with me today I have Josh Ball, who is a photographer, but he comes from a very interesting background, from air fridge mechanic to electrician to farmer. But I'll let Josh tell you these stories because they're pretty amazing. What catapulted him into this phase of becoming a photographer. So I'm glad you're taking the time out to be with me this morning. And so where do we start, Josh? So you're born on the farm. Tell people about your life on the farm.
Yeah, so I grew up in a little country town called Dumbleyung. It's a wheat and sheep farm, 6,000 sheep, 12,000 acres, and I loved the upbringing of the country life. It was incredible, and then went away to boarding school because there was high schools. My closest high school was Narrogin. Didn't love it, got bullied, and told my dad I needed to get out of there. So he actually went to Hale in Perth. So I ended up going there the Thursday prior to starting year 10. So I went away to boarding school and then left boarding school and then didn't really know what I wanted to do out of school. Like everyone else, we were just trying to find our feet, had no idea. And then one of my friends was becoming an aircon refrigeration mechanic. And I said, yep, I'll do that. That sounds all right. And then just started doing that as an apprentice.
And what was that like? Was that a 4-year apprenticeship or 3-year?
That was 3.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And was it a good thing to do, or how did you feel about that? Were you happy with learning how to be a mechanical, engineer in a way for fridges and air conditioning?
Yeah, well, most of it involved literally just crawling around in a roof, installing air conditioning, ducted air conditioning, split systems. And I guess at 18, you don't really have a clue what you want to do, but just because your friend's doing it, it's a path that opens up. So I thought I'll just continue down that because he's doing it. I don't know what I'm still trying to find myself, figure out what I want to try and do. So that was just it. So I went and did that and I didn't love it.
Right.
It wasn't super enjoyable, but I ended up just wanting to commit and finish the trade. I didn't want to cut it short. I just committed to doing it. And I came out of that as a tradie, an aircon refrigeration mechanic. And I thought, well, on top of this, being an electrician goes hand in hand with installing an aircon.
Absolutely. Good idea.
So I thought, if I can install an aircon and I need to get an electrician in, why don't I, this is a great idea, why don't I just go and be an electrician so I could do it all? So I said, all right, I'm going to do another trade.
Another apprenticeship.
Oh
gosh.
So there's another 3.5 years. I was an apprentice for, so about 7 or 8 years in total. I went away and did my electrical apprenticeship. And that was really challenging because I wasn't super smart at maths at school.
Yeah, there's a lot of maths, I know.
Really hard. It was hard work. But again, I just gritted my teeth, studied and got it done after 3.5 years again of studying as an electrician. Apprentice. I got that done. And then at the end of that, that was more enjoyable.
Okay.
2 years in,
there's a variety there, isn't there? Not the same sort of the roof and the it's a whole variety in it. I mean, from Telstra, actually putting long connections underground to so it's more interesting.
Yeah, street lights to houses, to commercial, to schools, to buildings in the city, all sorts of such a different variety. So that was in Subiaco. I started off as working in Balcatta, and I didn't really get along with the boss. And I could work hard, but I don't think I was that good at being an electrician at the start. And I didn't really get along with my boss. Second year in, he's like, nah, you're sacked. So I got sacked and I was like, okay, what do I do now? I had a...
How did you feel when that happened? I mean, were you happy that he sacked you, or were you
Yeah,
disappointed in yourself, or you know, like,
he was just really hard to get along with,
yeah,
and
okay,
and it was a struggle. I was pretty happy because I was stoked I got out of there. It was
yeah.
like a little bit naive back in the day. You're just trying to just work. You're just
Because
trying to
how
work
old would
hard.
you have been at that time?
I guess I was 18 when I did my Fridgie. I would have been about 22
Yeah, yeah,
ish,
yeah.
thereabouts.
Mm-hmm.
I was disappointed, but I was also happy because it was like I got to leave that company and find other things. And in the end, it's crazy how the world works. Stephen Murphy Electrical, I applied for him to work for him in Subiaco, and it turns out he loves employing a lot of other country guys that go to private schools. So I ended up finishing off my apprenticeship
Wow.
like with Stephen Murphy Electrical in Subiaco, and there was a lot of other tradies working there from around the country, like
Yeah, I remember that
the bush.
business actually when I was living in Perth. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other tradies that worked there were from around like other farms, so
Wow.
farmer kids as well. So we had a lot more in common, and I really enjoyed it, and I got along with everyone there.
Yeah.
So that was
So you finished your apprenticeship there,
yeah.
and then so what happened after that? I mean, you weren't happy being an electrician either.
I could just feel that there was something more,
Okay, that's
some sort
interesting.
of some sort of potential creative pull. I remember just my brother going traveling. Both my brothers went to Europe. And in the last year of being an electrician, I just started to think I needed to finish my trade as an electrician. I've just spent 8 years being an apprentice,
Yeah.
basically one after the other. I've got to go. I've just had this pull to go and travel the world. And because my brothers did it, and I just had this creative pull to see the world and try and find some new experiences instead of living this Perth bubble that I was
Yeah.
experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
call
you
it pull.
travelled for how long?
I ended up just planning on 3 months.
All
Me
right.
and my mate just said, let's go over to Europe for 3 months and just go to as many countries as we can.
Yeah.
Turns out I could apply for a British passport, so I could potentially stay there if I wanted to.
Wow.
So I ended up getting a British passport, going for planning on 3 months. Loved it, didn't want to leave, so I ended up staying there for a total of 18 months in the end, so
Wow.
about a year
Really?
and a half.
And mostly in England. What did you
Yeah,
do there? Did you work there, or did you just kept traveling and checking things out?
yeah. I initially was like, I'm gonna we'll just travel for 3 months and not really work and just see. And then once I like realized I loved it, I thought I need to stay here. I need to get a job. And so I started to figure things out that way. And in the end, I lived in London. So I thought, well, this can be a really good base. A lot of other people I knew were living in London as corporate or as a tradie, because as an electrician, you can actually get a job pretty easy there.
Wow.
The
Yeah.
Australian certificate converts straight to the English.
Wow. Okay, that's good.
So yeah, and I actually had a girlfriend at the time. So I was like, I'm
Okay.
staying here. What do you think about
Okay.
that?
All right.
So throw a bit of a spanner in the works. But she ended up saying, well, you know what? I actually love London. I might come over and live there with you, and then we can just travel. So we did.
Mm.
My mate Henry ended up staying there for 8 years in the end.
Yeah.
And I lived in London for 9 months. I'm a country kid. I don't love the city.
It's really busy.
It's
Yeah, I
such
know.
a
I've
busy.
been there. It's
Yeah, it's hectic. It's
yeah.
super busy.
Yeah, yeah.
But I knew that if I lived there, I could experience different countries and just work as a tradesman in London.
Yeah.
So I did, and so my ex-girlfriend at the time came over. We lived in London, in Fulham, and I just worked as an electrician, different places around the city, and then just went traveling like all around Europe
Oh,
and got to
nice.
see
Yeah, yeah.
all of Scandinavia, a lot of like Eastern Europe, Germany, Austria, and places like that.
Yeah.
So it was amazing.
And so what made you leave?
I think we were just not really enjoying London. in the end, we were just like, this is the weather, the people. We just weren't city people.
Yeah.
And we'd seen a lot of Europe, and I think we just felt like it was time to come home.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just called it around Christmas, I think in 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so you came back home, and then what happened when you came back here? You went straight back into doing electrical work?
yeah. So went back to living in Scarborough, where I was living out prior to going to Europe. And that girlfriend moved in with me. I lived in Scarborough, and then things just didn't really go to plan. I wasn't loving living in Perth either. I could still feel this need
For
for
something.
creativity. Something I guess I was maybe subconsciously searching for something. When I was traveling around Europe, I had a GoPro, and that really filled me up. I was taking videos, like in all these little trips when we go to different countries. I would just film and take photos on my GoPro, and there was something there. And actually, what ended up happening is that a friend of mine, or a friend of my ex-girlfriend, had a camera. It was a Canon 7D, and he ended up saying, "Can you please take that camera home, because I've got too much gear to take home." So I was like, "Okay, I'll take this Canon 7D home with me back to Perth." And so I just started to take more photos with it and shoot more while I was back in Perth. And that combined with the GoPro and like the experience of shooting things and around Europe, and just seeing, it sort of opened me up to experiences that I'd never really seen, created a lot more, seeing the world in a bit of a different eye through the lens, I guess.
Well, yeah, that's what I think is really interesting about being a photographer, because what are we looking at? You know what I mean? When we're just looking at something just now, for instance, I'm looking at you, right? And whatever my mind, because the eyes are they're only taking in what I'm looking at, but the brain makes out what it is. The brain actually says, well, this is what you're looking at. You're looking at Josh, right? But if I had a camera, I'd be looking at you differently. It wouldn't be the same. Because I know, just as a person that takes a photo of my husband or family or whatever, I know that when I'm looking for it, I'm not looking the same way as I would if I was not having a camera in front of me. You're looking for something through that camera, which it makes it all different. It definitely does. And I can see how people can actually become so creative with it, because it's a whole new, it's like looking through another lens.
It is.
It is, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Because you had a bit of an episode where you really lost yourself, right? Was that while you were doing the filming, while you were actually playing around with these cameras, or what happened there?
Yeah, that was when I moved back to Perth. And
And you were in Scarborough and things weren't working out.
no, I found myself in another city again. I miss the countryside, I miss the farm, I miss the nature, I miss the open spaces. And Europe just opened me up to so much potential around what you could do. It just really opened my eyes to other people that were photographers. I met one of these guys that were working at GoPro, and they had an amazing job. And I saw that, and then I sort of fast forwarded back to just being an electrician, and I thought there's so much more I could do. I was just searching for an enjoyable job. Being a Phrygian
Something that you
electrician.
can become passionate about. Because most people today, a good amount of people, aren't really happy with what they're doing. They're not really fulfilling what's really within themselves to and the thing is, they stick with what's familiar because it's easier than to step into something that's unknown. So you actually went into unknown territory. So from Perth, you moved, when you were going through these stages, you moved back to the farm with your parents, is that right?
Yeah. So I split up with my girlfriend at the time.
That would have been hard too.
Which was hard work after 4 years.
Yeah.
And just said, I've got to go. There's something here that
I need
I've
to
got
figure something
pursue.
out.
Yeah. I was really lost, and Europe was amazing, but it just twisted me in a way that I realized that there's something else out there that I need to pursue.
What were you thinking more on like in depth? I mean, when you can say you're lost, but what sort of loss did you feel? You know what I mean? Like, you can all say, "Oh, I got lost," but what's really happening with you mentally at this stage? How are you feeling about yourself?
Yeah, pretty average, really average, because this also probably comes back to comparison. I saw a lot of my friends around 29, sort of nearly hitting 30,
Yeah, and doing it.
and just going up in Chevron, running businesses, climbing the ladder, whatever it is. And there I was, a tradie, just unhappy with what I was doing, feeling like there was something else. I think I was searching for something else.
Yeah, yeah,
I knew that what I was doing wasn't it, and there was just a calling to move back to the farm with my Canon 7D, which become mine in the end, and just take photos, because that was the one thing that lit me up. And coming from that breakup, it just destroyed me, because I'd lost my identity as an electrician in Perth.
Yes,
I'd lost my girlfriend.
that's another identity. Yeah,
And I'd now just become starting fresh as a farmer.
yeah,
And I was nearly 30 years old.
yeah. Okay. And so, because all your friends at the same age are doing really well, you're feeling that you're sort of like below par, I guess. You're thinking you're not going to get there.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then you went to a retreat for a week of mindfulness, and was that for longer than a week?
So that was, yeah, so that was after leaving the farm.
Oh, okay.
That was only about
So you
6
were
months
still
ago.
searching.
Yeah.
You still took all these photos, still searching, leaving the farm.
Yeah, so farmed for 2 years, still searching.
Wow.
But what I would like to say is, I think, was that the slow shift is, after breaking up and going into the farm, having that, I had a complete meltdown, had a panic attack on the farm. I remember a weekend where my parents left, my brothers left, and I was left to run the farm.
Yeah.
And I was still, I guess, grieving
Yeah.
the ex. I was just
Well, you'd lost yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
And then feeling that you were less than because everyone else was more than. Absolutely, that's beautiful panic attack material, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was so intense. I was just basically on the ground, and I remember calling a friend, just going, "I've got to come to Perth. I got to leave the farm," because I couldn't even function. There's no way I could do anything.
No.
And so I got in my car and just said to Dad, "I'm leaving the farm. I don't feel good. I'm going to Perth." And so I just went and caught up with some friends in Perth and just tried to settle myself.
Yeah.
And that was a full meltdown and a really bad stage in my life, because I was so lost and confused and lonely and trying to find my path. For that first year on the farm in 2018 was horrendous, and I started, like, I thought, okay, I need a change here, because I went into a very anxious state every single day. It was just waking up feeling shitty, waking up feeling anxious, not sleeping well, going down, quite a depressive state.
It would have been between depression and anxiety.
100%.
Would have been like a wave.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah.
And I knew that I was better than that, but I did not know how to
get out of it.
So I ended up just, I was basically like crying to my parents every night at dinner.
Oh, wow.
It was like, it was a really horrible time. And my parents just didn't know how to cope with that.
Mm.
So
yeah, it would have been really tough for them too.
Yeah, that it was hard work, and my mum said, "You need to go and see someone."
Mm.
So I made the decision to go and see a psychologist in Narrogin, which was 45 minutes drive from our farm.
Mm.
And that put me on a path to, become a little bit more self-aware, figure out what I want to try and do. I had so many different options. I wanted to be a firefighter as well, and I was thinking I would be a firefighter. But there was this camera thing, this creative thing that was deep down, sort of a deep passion, and that was like pulling at me as well. And it was just all these multiple things that were going on. I just didn't know what direction to take. But I knew one thing is that I needed to do the work. I needed to improve my mental health, because there was one night where I was just after the pub, because we go to the pub after football a lot of the weekends, drinking. I drove home one night drunk, and I just fell into pieces when I was driving, and I just felt completely worthless. And I was just, alcohol just does some really dark things to you, and I was
Well,
ready
yes,
to,
but it's, at the time it's an escape from not being able to face up to yourself. You do these things so you can deaden what you're truly feeling, because you can't cope with what you're feeling.
yeah. So I was ready to. I don't want to say kill myself, but I was ready to. I guess.
Well, there's a lot of no. Those thoughts are pretty normal, when people are in that sort of state. To actually think, this is, I don't want to be here anymore because I can't cope.
Yeah,
I mean,
I had
that's very natural we're talking about you actually going through the situation for quite some time. It's not just an overnight thing. This is a build up. And it gets to the stage where you just can't see a way out. And you become totally helpless.
Yeah.
And also, I think being a male, I think men find it incredibly hard to be vulnerable and to actually say to someone, "Hey, I feel like shit. I'm in a really bad way." Men find that harder to say than women, because women can be emotional. They're brought up to be emotional, and nurturing. But men have got to be tough. They can't cry. They can't really. They've got to get on with life, pick themselves up, and move on. But we're human beings. We all have the same emotions, and to hold those in for such a long time. We're talking about, you're coming back from England, breaking up with your girlfriend, going on a farm, trying to find yourself for a couple of years. I mean, that's a real slow process of, coming to where you were at the time, totally just helpless.
Yeah, that was the feeling. Completely helpless. And I was like, I've had enough. Like, I'm done. And I pulled up on the side of the road, and I was like, you've got to just pull it together. There has to be something.
So you still had that little flicker coming back at you saying,
Yeah.
don't give up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's really good. That's a beautiful story. And so how did a retreat come into your mind? Because that's something totally different when you're going into mindfulness, because you weren't brought up with any of that sort of stuff. You were brought up with hard work on the farm, and I know that the farmers work so hard and get so little for it most of the time, but it's their thing, it's their passion,
Yeah. Well, the retreat came later. Is the one where I sort of had some.
Yeah.
The main awakening though, like that was the retreat came later on the path to becoming better with my mental health.
Okay.
So that was probably 3 years later.
Okay. All right. So what happened in that 3 years?
Well, I picked myself up and I said, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get my mental health right. And so I sat on the tractor or any single vehicle I was in on the farm, and I would listen to mental health podcasts, psychology podcasts, dive deep into neuroscience podcasts, photography podcasts, the manifestation podcasts, anything that would just improve my mindset.
Well, yeah, because you start listening to things that you didn't know about yourself, because you'll start to hear things and you'll think, hey, wait a minute, that makes sense because I think like that sometimes. So you start to become more aware of your thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what happened.
That's beautiful.
That's what happened. So every single day I got up and listened to my mindfulness, awareness, psychology podcasts. and I was shooting more with my camera, with my 7D. I would just go to Bremer Bay by myself. I would take photos, and then I was starting to think, well, okay, there's something to live for here.
Yeah.
This camera the camera saved my life. The camera is what got me through those dark days because of the passion that it lit up inside me. So the camera taking photos combined with the mental health podcasts and things that I would do, including exercise. I started to meditate. I started to do a bit of breath work. I started to journal. I started doing everything that these mindfulness people were saying on these podcasts.
Yeah.
I would talk about it to people in the pub, and they'd be like, what are you talking about? You know, so I had to almost hide all the things that I was doing because of the farmer country Australian way.
And there's no understanding. Most people don't understand all that thing, and they even think, like, even with yoga, you know, with you know that I'm a yoga teacher, but you actually find that some people will think, you know, especially if you're chanting, and I remember thinking this myself. If you were chanting, that had to be a cult. It had to be a religion. It couldn't just be something spiritual. And spiritual to me is, because we don't have a guru, we don't have anyone that we bow down to. We only bow down to ourselves. Because God, if you want to mention the word God, I used to find that really hard to say that word because I was a real atheist. But God is within us. So that was the message that, you know, if you look at the Bible, some of the things that they say in there is, you know, do unto others as you do unto yourself. You know, there's all these little lines in there and you're thinking it's actually in you, you know, and that's what you need to, and then you get to understand that everything comes from you. The world is the way it is because of the way we are, you know, but having that camera, you're looking through different lens. Yeah. So you know, and it's almost like, and I had this on my Instagram page recently, actually. I think I did. Yeah, I did. Imagine, instead of looking at people, looking at a person, you were looking at their soul. That would change your whole perspective on what is beautiful.
That relates to...
Yeah. The camera.
To the camera, and I would even piggyback on that and go, I was looking at their story.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
Well, the story is what's inside them.
Yeah. And that created the passion for storytelling.
Yeah.
In photography for me. And I think creativity was the thing that was laying dormant. What you're saying, the world within us.
Yeah, it's within us.
I think creativity and photography was dormant inside me, but I needed to have those episodes, the dark times, in order for me to make the change and cut the shit and remove myself from those patterns, those thought patterns of being a farmer, whatever it is, the male standard thing, and go, hang on, I need to lean in to this creativity that is within inside me and pursue that. And the moment I let go of all the ego of what I should be and started to realize I need to chase photography and this creativity, everything started to open up for me.
Doors open up everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you recently did, was approached by Canon, I believe, and you did a talk at Cannington in Perth.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's pretty...
Yeah, and that actually is crazy because I started to manifest things and created a vision board, and on that vision board in about 2020, I wrote, I will work for Canon Australia.
Really?
I've got a photo of it, and my theory from all the work I did was to make decisions to whatever aligns to work with Canon. So every single day I made decisions to work with Canon, to start educating, to put myself in front of the camera, to help others, to be of service. And then, 2020 I started.
Well, I can see where that's coming from, because like, this saved my life.
Yeah, that's the deep
and
passion.
You've got that connection with that camera.
Yeah. So
that's beautiful.
In 23, they emailed me and said, we like what you're doing, we like the education, we'd like you to make some videos for us, for our social media. So
that's fantastic, isn't it? How exciting.
And that was the top of my list, to work for Canon Australia. That was the very top of my vision board. to come from that time that I was just having a meltdown in the car driving home from the pub
Yeah.
to 3 years later,
Yeah.
or probably a bit more, four or so years later to
Yeah.
now be working for Canada, Australia.
And you're right about, you know, having to go through all those struggles, because they say that, you know, you need to go through the struggles to find out who you are,
Yeah,
unfortunately. But some people don't know that, I guess, and they stay stuck in that realm of not being able to help themselves, and you know, they're not being sick most of the time because their body just, you know, is getting the wrong messages about themselves. Because if your the brain is like a government, you know. If you've got a bad government, the whole country suffers, right? Well, the brain is in charge of trillions of cells, and if you're giving it negative feedback, all those cells will feel negative inside your body. Same thing, no different.
yeah,
So do you want to, you know, and as Tom Dooley would say, choose your thoughts wisely because they're real.
yeah,
That was his little.
yeah,
That I love that line. It's because it's true.
yeah. You need positive, like optimistic self-talk.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, and that was a part of
Yeah,
the
and we'll always have that, because our thoughts are an energy wave. So it's just a wave, and it's got to have its ups and downs. It has to have its ups and downs, because then you wouldn't know what was great and what wasn't great. You wouldn't have these elevated feelings. You know, there's no way. I think, you know, I think the only person that could probably live on that parallel line in the middle there, the neutral mind, would have to be the guys that sit down and meditate all day. You know, and they've been doing it for years, like the Buddha, or
yeah,
I think they're the ones that would never get faced either way. They just stay on that level path, which you know, I can find myself in sometimes. 24/7, I'd love it.
yeah.
You
Nice.
know, but the ups and downs are quite natural, and sometimes you need to have that little bit of a jolt for your next mission or your next opening, next door that's going to open.
Yeah, I think I think the downs create pain, which forces to change,
Mm,
and that's
yeah,
what happened.
yeah.
I was telling myself a lie, you know, programmed, and
Well,
I
you were
needed to.
trying to be like other people.
Yeah,
Really, you were
just
you were
trying to
trying
fit in.
to fit in. Yeah, which is you know, that's a fantastic journey and I'm so glad that you know, you can actually share that, you know, because it's important, because someone would be listening, maybe feeling the way that you felt at the bottom of the pit, and how you've picked yourself up. You know, I think that's a really important thing, and being vulnerable to be open like that, to share that is a blessing, that
Yeah,
alone. And
yeah,
I think, you know, that story you can even tell when you're doing your workshops with your camera, or, you know, like, it's something that you can bring out, because you find that when you do that, you share that, others will share their experiences,
yeah, yeah. Definitely.
especially the males, the men, you know, they're not in a good end of the bargain, I think, as far as their emotions. But what else was I going to say? So when you're filming your photography, what do you enjoy photographing the most?
Yeah, I had this question recently, and I really love the lifestyle aspect, the storytelling aspect, and there's no one genre. I would just say that I love photographing someone that is in their craft and super passionate about what they're doing. And when someone else is in that element and in flow, I'm in flow photographing that, the energy just seems to sync, and we both can just have such a powerful creative experience, and then we both just can create anything together. And I just think it's storytelling when they're doing their thing, and I get to capture that.
Yeah,
You both just
and they're
it's
just naturally doing their thing,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's like not setting it up too much.
not
It's just saying, hey,
opposed.
do
Yeah,
this. And I do love to direct a bit, but to get like good composition and for the light as well. But it's also just someone that is loving their craft that I get to experience that and capture that.
yeah. So
And
you're working with you're doing weddings and all that sort of thing. You tell me
yeah,
where you're heading with all your photography. So you're doing weddings, parties.
yeah, yeah. So weddings, I had 22 weddings this season. I've got a bunch of lifestyle clients, all like breweries around the southwest,
Oh,
breweries,
lovely.
weddings, Pilates companies around, and wellness companies around
Yeah.
the southwest. Some clothing companies. So it's
That's
really,
great.
a lot of lifestyle stuff,
Yeah.
which I love, and a lot of weddings.
Yeah.
So I get to work with people at weddings and have fun with them, and they're on the dance floor. There's a lot of love. It's really
beautiful.
Cool. Yeah.
So how do people get in touch with you if they were interested in you doing some photography work for them?
Great question. It would be the simplest thing is Instagram.
Okay, Instagram.
Josh Ball _images.
_images. I'll put it at the end of the
Perfect
tape anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Have you got a website yet? Or?
And a website. Yeah.
And you got a website as well under Josh Ball?
JoshBallImages.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because your website would have a showcase of your
photos.
Portfolio. Yeah, which would be great for people to look at.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So that's...
Well, that's great. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing all that amazing growth. There's a lot of things that went down there, and you said you wanted to tell your story because you do want to reach out to people that are feeling the way that you felt, because you remember how you felt and you were so lost. So sharing that out there, you're giving people that inspiration that there is a way out.
Totally.
And if they want to get in touch with you and say, hey, Josh, I wouldn't mind having a chat to you, maybe you could even say, just get in touch with me on Instagram. And
well, I can relate. I can totally relate.
So important to relate.
Who is maybe battling falling into that trap of doing something that their parents told them to do, or their high school,
friends,
the path or whatever it is. And it's like, you have to put that aside and lean into your intuition and go, this is what I really love doing, and pursue that.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Josh.
And
and Josh is also going to be with us at the next Yelling Up Wellness Expo in October the 27th. Josh will be giving a talk there, and he'll also be taking some shots. Awesome. Thanks very much, and until the next wave, adios.